What's up, everyone? Welcome to Tuesday Live. Another Tuesday morning stream here. We're trying out the new time slot. Gonna see how it goes for the next couple of weeks. I actually like this. The reason that we're pushing to an earlier time slot is because I am pushing to finish up my new video course. The Fretboard Fundamentals Chords and Rhythm course is going to be coming out later this month, so be on the lookout for that. Quick plug, we're doing 50% off the current Fretboard Fundamentals course, which, if you're not familiar, is my video course that I made late last year, which is essentially a comprehensive guitar theory video course. It basically teaches you everything you need to know to get up to speed on completely unlocking the fretboard and all of the fundamental theory things that guitar players need to know. The Chords and Rhythm course basically takes a section of the Fretboard Fundamentals course and goes much, much deeper. In fact, the Chords and Rhythm course, I think, is going to end up being longer than the Fretboard Fundamentals course. But anyways, you can get 50% off of that. There's 10 of those coupons available. Check the link in the chat. There's only 10. When they're gone, they're gone. And then for the rest of the time, we're running 30% off of Fretboard Fundamental. So, all right, what is this title about? This helped my friend nail a big audition. So, as always, on the ones and twos, producer Chris.
What's up, guys?
Chris has got a guitar today because he's going to be learning something. I'm going to be teaching Chris, as well as you guys, something. So, last week, I got a somewhat frantic text message from my friend, Rod Castro. If you don't know Rod, Rod's an amazing guitar player based in LA. He's a big session guitar player and a big touring player. He's played and toured with Beyonce, BB Rexa. I mean, I don't even, his resume is quite impressive. Rod's a good friend, and he had a big audition last week that I'm not allowed to disclose who it was for, but it was a very, very well-known pop act. And he got a call for this audition, and he texted me the night before and said, hey, what would you tell someone who's never played slide before and had to audition and play a slide solo for X artist tomorrow? And I was like, oh, okay, well. So I came upstairs, grabbed my guitar, and gave him basically a crash course in Slide Guitar 101. And I'm happy to report that per Rod's report, it's he nailed the audition. So I don't know if he got the gig yet, but he definitely nailed the audition. So basically, we're going to do a crash course in Slide, and I'm going to give assistant producer Chris here a crash course in Slide. So let me turn off my phaser. Although I kind of like the phaser. I like
the phaser.
It's 70s like outlaw phaser country kind of vibes, which is sort of nice. Let me turn off the overdrive. Yeah, you got some like 70s outlaw phaser country. Okay, I'm gonna turn off the phaser. It's a little distracting because I'm gonna be stuck in that headspace. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to everyone's just joining in. So, let's see here. Interesting mix of phase and slap. Yeah, dude. Phase and slap go together like bread and butter. You know, that's quite a bit of slap, but we're gonna stick with it. All right. So, crash course and slide. The first thing that I told Rod was intonation is the most important thing. Because you're playing slide, you don't have use of any frets. If you've never played slide before, you might not realize that when we're playing with the slide, we're not actually fretting a note, meaning we're not pressing the string down and fretting the note. Instead, what we're doing is sliding our slide on top of the string and lining it up roughly on top of the fret. And this brings up my first point, which is when it comes to playing in tune with slide, which is the most important thing and the most difficult thing for a beginner to wrap their head around, a lot of people tend to look at the fret. Like, let's say I'm going to go up to play this octave. And I should mention I'm in open D right now. We're in open D tuning. So D, A, D, F sharp, A, D, 1, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1. It's basically like an E major voicing, just tuned down a whole step because I think it sounds better than E major. So what a lot of people tend to do is they tend to try and look and visualize where the slide needs to end up to play in tune, right? But there's a problem with that. My perspective on the guitar, on the fretboard, is not the right perspective to try and see where my slide needs to end up. Meaning, if I'm playing up here, I can pretty well see exactly where the slide needs to go because I'm looking straight down at the slide. But if I play my 4-chord G major down here and I'm going based off of look, well, now I'm looking at a really weird angle. So if I go off of what looks right to me on the slide, it's going to be somewhere around here. And if you know, that's not in tune. That doesn't sound like this. And therein lies the quintessential issue with trying to learn slide for beginners. It's really tough to play in tune. Now, Chris was messing around a moment ago before we went live, and he ran into this very thing, and it made me smile because I watched him. He literally said, like, "Oh, like I'm looking at it." What did you say?
Hey man, don't tell me what I said.
You did this thing though. You're like, It's really hard to play in tune. I'm trying to look where I am.
Yeah, I was looking. You were trying to show me this lick. Trying to show me this lick right here. This. Right. And I'm looking, trying to tell where it should be in tune. You know, because you put your finger close to the fret, and it works. But the slide doesn't really end up in the same spot. I guess it's like a different point of contact than your finger would be. It's honestly kind of disorienting. It's
very disorienting, which is why we don't play slide with our eyes. We play slide with our ears. Okay, so when it comes to learning and playing in tune, this is what I told Rod. The first thing you want to do is practice a few basic moves. Okay, so this lick that I taught Chris, the really, really basic slide lick. I'm going to bring the slap down a little bit, unfortunately, because this is a lesson, right? We're not going for vibes here. So basically, the first thing you want to do is practice fretting the notes. So it's like learning how to bend, right? You want to fret the note first, and then you want to slide to it and start off slow. So, and your ear will tell you if you're right or wrong, right? Your ear will tell you if you're flat or sharp. All right? So the first thing to do is slide up and down and work on your intonation, work on playing in tune, being able to nail that whole step. Start slow and go fast. Essentially what we're trying to do here is work on two different areas at once. One, work on your ear to be able to quickly identify when a note is in tune. And two, we're trying to identify and work on our muscle memory, right? Because this is a different motor skill than what you're used to playing when you're fretting something. Because there are no frets. So essentially we have to retrain our entire hand to play this new way. So in Rod's case, he was going into this audition for this big pop artist, and I have to admit, the slide solo that he had to play was not easy. There's a few issues with it. One, I could tell by listening to it that it was played by a producer who's probably not a slide guitar player. It sounded pieced together, meaning they probably did 2 or 3 takes and they stitched the best parts. They comped the best parts of the take together because you could, if you listen closely, you could hear it wasn't quite there. I may be wrong on that, but that was my take on it. The other thing was on that slide solo, it was basically an Ionian scale, just a major scale outlining the chord progression, but there was no vibrato. There was no bending, meaning like when you go into a note on slide, you know, a lot of people will do this kind of thing. Playing like a vocalist would play, and there was none of that. On this solo, it was just like, and it was just kind of straight ahead, which tells me that it was tuned later. I think they pitch corrected the slide solo later because it just wasn't quite there. But the point is that for a first slide solo to be going into this the night before an audition, it was not an easy one to learn. And because it was in standard tuning, the slide solo was a lot of this sort of vertical motion down the neck, and it was a lot of these whole step slides really, really quickly. So the first thing I told Rod was work on that intonation. Start slow and work your way up. Okay?
We got a couple good questions.
Yeah. Let me see.
So, do you have your guitar set up specifically to play slide, or are there certain guitars that are better? Certain strings that are better?
I don't have guitars that are set up specifically for slide, because I think it sort of limits the guitar. It limits what you can do with the guitar when you have it set up for one specific job. So, generally speaking, I like to leave my guitars set up to do just about anything with the exception of the guitar Chris is playing right now, the Mulecaster. That guitar is a slide guitar. It's got big, heavy, flat wound strings on it. It's tuned to D, open D.
Action is quite high.
The action's quite high. Now, you could play that in standard, but because they're flat wound strings, and because they're I think they're 13s on there right now.
They're heavy.
Yeah, those are some beefy strings. So that guitar is set up for slide, which is why I had Chris play it. But all my other guitars, I try and play slide on just about all of the guitars I have. And some of them are easier than others. Like this Firebird is a great slide guitar. I think just because of the shape of the guitar and the way the neck is kind of shifted to the left, I really enjoy this. My SG has turned out to be an incredible slide guitar. My Strat, my John Mayer Strat, I hate playing slide on that guitar. It just doesn't really work.
Does the string gauge matter at all? Like, are those 10s or 9s? Or?
Yeah, it does matter. These are 10s on here. Those are, I think, 13s on there. Basically, what it does, and this is the next point with slide, is learning to have a light touch, because we don't want to hear this whenever I don't want to be fretting out. So, right? Because that's not what the slide should sound like. The slide should sound not. Right? So with lighter gauge strings, it's much more difficult to be able to hold the slide and find the sweet spot where you're not fretting out and buzzing. You're getting that kind of and where you're not digging into the fret either.
Yeah.
It's like this very, very thin little Goldilocks zone. So the lighter gauge string does make that more difficult. And for a beginner slide player, I probably would recommend starting with a slightly heavier gauge string, like a 10 or 11.
I think it would be impossible for me to do that with this guitar.
Yeah, if that guitar had 9s on it, you would be really struggling right now.
But I don't know if I could take the slide and press those strings into the fret like that.
Yeah, not with that guitar. So Ben Kaufman asks, are longer scale links better suited for slide guitar? Not necessarily. You can play slide on anything. I mean, literally anything. If you remember the intro sequence to It Might Get Loud with Jack White, where he builds a guitar out of a plank of wood with 2 nails, a string, a Telecaster pickup, and a Coke bottle, and he plays slide on that, yeah. Fun fact, I actually saw that. If you go to Third Man Records in Nashville, it's sitting in the glass case where you check out, where the register is. That guitar thing that he built is sitting at the bottom of that case, and I kind of had a moment with it. So, let's see here.
So should I try that thing you were talking about?
Yes, so check it out. Go to the 12th fret. Now, because we're in open D here, if I go up to the 12th fret, the first thing we want to do is try playing a major chord across all 6 strings with your slide. So bar your slide across all 6 strings.
Okay.
And try and get a nice major chord to ring out with no buzzing.
And should I put a little vibrato on it?
Yeah, put a little sauce on it and see what happens.
All right. We'll see how this goes.
Okay.
So.
There you go. Nice. Good.
And should I have my fingers back here touching the strings?
This goes to the next point in the crash course. I'm glad you brought that up. My God. It's almost as if we scripted this. We didn't. But, yeah, that sounds great. It's in tune. You're not fretting out. You got a nice little vibrato on there. But this goes on to the next most important thing about playing slide, and that is muting, okay? So if you notice, Chris is playing with a pick. There's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of great slide players that play with a pick. I do it occasionally. But if you notice in my... Oh, we got a top chat. Scott Baines, I get that nails on a chalkboard thing from slide. Not the sound, which is cool, but just the feel of it in my hands. Maybe I'm just weird. Also, Lumber Fund. Thanks, man. Yeah, actually right now, instead of Lumber Fund, it's HVAC Fund. We're finally finishing up in the studio build. We had to move, just as a quick aside here, basically my entire home heating and air conditioning system and my hot water heater had to move because where it was originally was in the middle of the live room. So we've spent the last month, it's probably been 6 weeks total between the two pieces, getting the hot water heater moved, and then right now they're moving the HVAC and heater system. And if anyone has ever done that before, you know that it's like performing major surgery on your home. We had to knock a hole in a big cinder block wall. We had to move all the stuff over. We had to get electrical done. On top of that, we're also having to install a smaller air conditioning system for the control room itself, because the control room is going to be so well insulated and there's going to be so much gear in there generating heat that even in February when it's freezing cold here, we're going to have to be running the air conditioning in that room. So I appreciate this week. The Lumber Fund is actually the air conditioning fund. So thank you. Okay, so muting. This is another really, really important thing, and this is a thing that I told Rod, because what you don't want to hear, a telltale sign of a beginner slide player, is this kind of sound. Meaning I want to hear one note, but I'm hearing 2 or 3 at a time. So if I play with my pick, I'm going... Now that doesn't necessarily sound bad, but in that case, in that example, I couldn't choose when I was hearing one single note versus 2 or 3 notes at a time. It was kind of just happening and I had no control over it. And we always want to have control over what we're playing. So what I like to do, take your pick and just stuff it between your first finger and your second finger like this, just tuck it away, because you can always quickly just grab it and go back to picking with it, but stuff it here. And we're going to place our right hand just kind of draped over all 6 strings like this, okay? And what this is doing is when I play the slide, I now have control over picking one note at a time. So if we go back to this original lick we were talking about, this, you notice there was only one note playing at a time. So as soon as I go from the second string to the third string, I'm muting the second string, right? So if you watch my thumb and my first finger, so I pick with the first finger, and then as soon as I pick with my thumb, my first finger lands on that second string to mute it. So it's same thing with that. So I'm constantly like moving around the strings, or you can do like the Derek Trucks rake kind of thing, and you can get, as you get more advanced, you can get these rakes going, like the... Like right there, playing single notes. And then raking for a chord. Right, that's where you start to get the tone right. You start to get the swampiness, the feel of the slide. And so as you start to develop that, you can choose when notes are muted and clean and straightforward and when they're open. So that's the first thing, is muting in the right hand and getting control to only play one note at a time. So try that, Chris. Go take this this lick that we were doing and play with your fingers and try and get one note at a time to ring out.
So you're not always doing that though. Like you're doing it when you want to play single notes, but like obviously when you want to play more chords and stuff, you just pick however you choose.
Exactly. It's about, you want to have the choice.
Yeah.
Right. And when you're first starting out, especially with playing a pick where your right hand might be floating above the strings when I'm not muting any of the strings. Check this out. I'll get like a... What's happening there is my second string is still ringing as I go down. So if I play... So now I have... Which doesn't sound bad. Actually kind of sounds like a pedal steel lick. That.
Right, but you want it to be intentional.
Right. And for this lick, I want to hear this. So when I go down to that 2, that 9, that's the only note that I'm hearing.
Wow. I'm actually kind of really surprised by that.
Why?
I just didn't think it would be so like specifically coordinated, or it seems like such a I don't even know the right word. It's like it's almost like a dance. Like,
yeah, it's a very delicate thing.
Delicate, yeah.
And that's part of why so I was telling Chris before we went live that when I want to sit down and play guitar just for the sake of playing guitar, and I want to enjoy myself, and I want to, oh God, it wouldn't be a live stream if I didn't unplug my headphones. Hold on. Yeah, when I want to sit down and just have a good time playing guitar, I always go to playing slide. I go to open D or open E, and I just sit and turn on some effects and I play slide. This is my favorite way to play guitar. And a lot of it is because it's this sort of delicate kind of dance between your right hand and your left hand, which may sound a little like cliche or, God bless it, Jesus. Hold on. There might be kids watching this show, so I have to keep it
Take this
PG rated.
opportunity to plug some stuff.
Yeah. So, we got a handful of 50% off coupons left. If you want Fretboard Fundamentals, 50% off. There's only 6 left. Once those are gone, they're gone. You can get 30% off through the rest of the week. Also, a preemptive plug. Towards the end of the month, we will be announcing the pre-sale launch of my brand new video course, Fretboard Fundamentals, Chords and Rhythm. It's a much deeper dive into the theory and practical application of rhythm guitar and chord theory and harmony. We've been working really hard on this course behind the scenes, and this is the course that, like, every guitar player, if you want to be a gigging guitar player or a working guitar player, the rhythm guitar fundamentals are absolutely necessary to working. So, yeah, 50% off while you still can. Ben Kaufman in Top Chat, are higher or lower output pickups more suited for slide guitar? Doesn't matter, man. I think people have this idea of a slide guitar having to be this like specific thing or this specific sound, and that's not the case. A slide guitar can be anything. It can be any type of sound you want it to be, any type of amp. It could be an acoustic guitar if you want. There's no rules with slide guitar. There's no right or wrong way to get the right slide guitar sound. Andrew McCuster in the Top Chat, thanks, man. Kicking in for the HVAC too. Also have the same problem when trying to play slide. To try to play with a slide, whether brass or glass, though I'm a complete novice. Looking forward to trying it later. Finger picking. Yes. All right. So, Chris, let's try this lick. And there's one other muting thing we're going to work on.
All right.
After that.
Gotta breathe. I can do this.
Okay. You got it.
I feel like this is going to be hard.
Yeah.
See the G ring out there too.
Or a little bit, but
yeah.
So slow it down. So. Right.
Okay.
Now get that ninth in tune. So
should be down there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can always fret it first if you want. So you can go. That's kind of what it should sound like.
Right, but it should have a little bit of like a lean into that, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, that's that kind of like Dwayne sort of style, the Dwayne Allman sort of thing, which he wasn't, or Elmore James. I mean, there's plenty of early slide blues players that would do this kind of thing, but like it's that kind of.
Yeah, so it's like not even really in tune. You're going in tune for a second, but you're like sweeping in and sweeping out.
Yeah, and this is another thing to think about with slide is so we spent a lot of time at the beginning talking about intonation and the importance of intonation, but it's almost one of those things like you have to know the rule so you can break the rule.
Right.
So like you need to be able to play in tune and with good intonation and confident intonation. So that on certain licks, depending, if you're trying to do that kind of Dwayne Allman, You know, on that lick, for example, I'm not going perfectly in tune. I'm doing like this note is a little sharp.
Yeah,
it's not going like that. Doesn't have the same kind of vibe to it, right?
It's very like it's like a singer.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
It's very vocal. The same thing with this kind of. When I go down to this ninth, I'm not technically going all the way down in tune because I'm playing it really quick. It's more of like a suggestion of the lick. It's like. But whereas like on Sadler Vaden's solo for Speed Trap Town, the Jason Isbell song, he opens it by going 4, 3, 2, and he's actually playing all that in tune. So it's because that's more of a melody line. It's less of like a swampy slide lick, and it's more of like a vocal melody kind of thing. All right. So the other part of muting, though, that's really important, and you started to allude to this earlier when you were asking, is what do you do with your fingers behind the slide? And this is another thing that it's a choice. So if I go back to this D on the 12th fret, right now what I'm doing is I'm resting, my first finger is just resting on the strings behind the slide. It's literally just sitting there. It's not fretting anything. It's not doing anything but just kind of holding on to and dampening the strings behind the slide. And this is doing two things for me. One, it's giving me a cleaner, a little bit warmer sound out of the slide. So especially as that note sustains, it's a little warmer in its repeat. The other thing that it's doing is it's helping to give me an anchor point. One thing I should point out, and I told Rod this, is a lot of beginner slide players, and I did this for a long time when I was learning, they keep their thumb in front of the neck, like almost like they're making a cup with their hand like this, and they play like this. That's not a good way to play slide because you have no anchor point. And the only place that you're actually touching the neck here is through the slide, which is moving around. So it makes it incredibly difficult to play in tune, to play accurately. So keep your thumb on the back of the neck like this, and then you slide the thumb up and down the neck as needed. And so what's happening, like if I'm sliding down, I'll actually just kind of lift my thumb off the back of the neck, slide down, and then re-anchor. So if I'm like, it's real quick, just kind of up and down, but I'm always keeping my thumb on the back of the neck. So if you listen with the muting here, here's with my first finger muting the strings behind the slide, and then I'm going to play the same thing, but I'm going to lift my first finger, and you'll hear the difference. So here's muted. Here's unmuted. Hear the difference?
It's subtle, but yeah.
It's subtle. It's brighter. You get much more string noise. You get this kind of thing. Much more, where if my finger's muting, it's a little darker. Same thing with single notes. Here's muted. Versus unmuted.
Yeah.
A little brighter, a little more attack, a little more bite coming through. So like the right hand muting, this is a choice. And you'll see great slide players, they'll choose, like even in the middle of licks, their fingers behind the slide will be going up and down, choosing when they're muting, when they're not muting. Or you may start a phrase, like if you're going to a 4-chord, like where you'll start muted to get into the chord, and then you lift your fingers to get that like string noise. Like that kind of thing with little overdrive on. Right? So, muting.
Yeah. Those are all, so it's all just like choices with like the way you want to articulate the note, like what you want to say. And those are all of those things you just said are choices I never would have considered.
Yeah, there's a lot happening.
Yeah.
Than more than just like putting the slide over the fret and getting the note to ring out in tune.
That's as far as I had thought it through.
It's, yeah, and keep in mind, like I still consider myself a somewhat beginner slide player compared to a lot of the truly great slide players out there. Like I watch Joey Landreth play or Ariel Posen play, who are more, modern contemporary guys. That it's like the control that both of those dudes have, and the way that they blend slide playing and fretted playing, and the way that they're playing out in their solos with a slide is, everyone knows Dwayne Allman, everyone knows, Elmore James and Derek Trucks and, all the greats of slide guitar. But what like Joey is doing and Ariel is doing, I think is really, really pushing the slide guitar style forward. I love it. I love watching those guys play. So to me, that's where I want to get as a slide player. It'll take me years and years. 6 coupons left for 50% off Fretboard Fundamentals. Use code 502822 at checkout to get 50% off of that video course. Once those are gone, they're gone. Oh, there's only 3 coupons left. Sorry, 3 left. So once they're gone, and then you can get 30% off through the rest of the week. All right, we got any questions here? Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was just told. Just told the 3 left.
What amp are you going through right now?
Right now, I'm going through the orange 8030 down here. And I've got a little overdrive on. This is a super secret prototype overdrive coming from Mythos very, very soon. Slide bass. Matthew asks, yes, you can play slide and bass. In fact, there's a band that we toured with back in 2017. I was with Muddy Magnolias, and we went on a 4-week East Coast tour with a band called The Record Company. And they had a big radio single that year. I forget what the name was called. They were really nice guys. It was cool. And that was a really fun tour because we were playing these like small rock clubs. And they had a good pull at the time, so every show was sold out, and it was a good time. But their big single from that year, the main sort of part of the song was a bass line that had slide. Somebody tell me what the name of that song was. The Record Company, it was like their big single from 2017. It's all over rock radio and indie radio. But that's an example. Like, yeah, you can totally play slide on bass.
I could have sworn there's some like live show, or maybe it's one of the Pompeii clips from Pink Floyd where they're playing slide on bass, I think.
Was it the Pulse?
I can't remember
record?
For sure.
The live record?
There's definitely one where he's playing slide on bass with like some really gritty, like nasty fuzz tones.
Jeremy's got a good question. How do you approach phrasing on slide differently than regular? So I really like working in open tunings and using triads and working around triads. So, for example, right now I'm in open D, all right? So that's a D major triad. D, A, D, F sharp, A, D, right? So, this is the next thing to think about slide when you're in open tuning. The first thing when it comes to I got distracted reading comments. I lost my train of thought. Sorry. So the first thing is when it comes to learning chords, because we're playing a major triad, it's really easy to play 1, 4, 5. So here's my 1 chord. Here's my 4 chord. Here's my 5 chord. So you can bar with your finger. So once you have that in mind, then all of these little boxes move around. So if I go back to the 1 up here on the 12th fret, that D major, I can start to work in these little. And again, oftentimes when I'm playing slide, I want that sort of traditional, sort of greasy slide tone. So licks like we were playing. all of that is working around the major and minor pentatonic. So, or occasionally you'll throw in like a sus4. There's my 4 chord again. So you start to learn these really simple little lines. The other thing to think about is playing a major scale, but on a single string. With a drone note going, so this low D. My flat 7 major. Down to 4. So that's one way I think about it. The other way I think about it is around like major triads this way, like these kind of voicings. 4 minor. Back to 1. The thing is, because of this tuning, we have a lot of repeated notes, right? So I have, just in my root note, I have 1 right there. Then here I've got a repeated 5th. So anything I play on these 2 strings, or my octaves from the 1, or here. So at that point, the only outlier string you need to worry about is the major 3rd, which in this case is the F sharp. So yeah, you start to identify these chord tones, move them around, start to work both kind of vertically in a box like this, and horizontally up the neck. JMFD, thanks for the donation, man. I appreciate that. Alex Ovenhouse has a great question. What was Alex's question? I'm just now checking back into chat. Roger Waters does use a slide on bass during echoes.
Oh, the live at Pompeii echoes?
Yeah. Only 2 coupons left for 50% off Fretboard Fundamentals. Get them while they're there.
Oh, just joined. Maybe you covered this already. I can never get the pressure right when using a slide.
Okay, so yeah, we talked about it a little bit, but let's dive in a little bit deeper. So, we talked about whether or not to set up your guitar for slide. Now, personally, I don't, because again, just to recap, I like to keep my guitars open and available to do multiple things. And if I have a slide specific guitar like the Mule there that Chris is playing, I tend to only use that guitar when I want to play slide. So it kind of limits that guitar's use. So what I would recommend is start with a slightly heavier string gauge. So if you play 9s, maybe go to 10s. If you play 10s, maybe go up to 11s, or just stick with 10s. And practice developing a feel for how much pressure you need. It's not much at all. And use your ear, right? So the first thing is we don't want to press too hard and fret out. We don't want to hear this. That's way too hard. And we don't want it to be too light to where it's bouncing, the string is bouncing off of the fret. Like that's too light. The other thing we have to contend with, which makes it slightly trickier, is the radius of the fretboard and the strings being radiused with the fretboard. So with super low action, what makes it hard to play slide with super low action is the fact that if I want to play a whole chord, like that 5 chord there, for example, I've got to press hard enough so that the slide is pushing down and flattening all 6 strings. But if your action is super low, you don't have that much room to wiggle with before you start to fret out, especially on these middle 2 strings, the D and the G, before you start to hit the fret. So that's why you hear people talk about, oh, go heavier strings and raise your action up, is to help prevent you from fretting out. But like I talked about, I don't really like to do that. So spend some time. Don't worry about fancy licks. Don't worry about trying to transcribe solos. Just work on chords. So being able to play chords and single note lines. This is a really good exercise to help with that. So essentially what I'm doing there is just outlining the major scale. But I'm only playing one string at a time, so I'm working on my right hand muting, so. And I'm working on my intonation. So, there you go. Vic in the top chat, just because I appreciate you. Thank you. From British Columbia. I appreciate that, man. I love British Columbia. If I could move anywhere in the world right now, I'd move to Squamish, BC. Plexico, Sun Hunter loves you and starting out on guitar. Would love to sweeten Twinkle Twinkle Little Star so he can impress his 4th grade class. Would love to sweeten.
How would you sweeten?
Oh, how would you sweeten? Sorry. I don't know. How would you sweeten Twinkle Twinkle Little Star so he can impress his 4th grade class? Maybe play it on slide. Can a 4th grader play slide? Only one coupon left for 50% off Fretboard Fundamentals. 502. Why can I not read numbers right now? 502-822 at checkout. Get the last 50% off. How would you sweeten? You play minor. Make it moody.
I think it'll be impressive enough.
I think just playing it would be impressive enough. Maybe he could. I was gonna say maybe you could arrange it into a chord melody, but 4th grader. I don't know. How old is a 4th grader? What is that? 10? 8 years old? 10 years old?
8 or 9 years old.
Do you teach any kids that young?
Yeah.
Piano?
Piano, yeah.
Okay. I don't know, man. Sorry I don't have a better answer for you.
Maybe you could play it with like octaves instead of just one note.
I would say, try and figure out a way to play more than just one note at a time, a single note melody. So if that's octaves, or if it's the chords, playing chords underneath it, or playing chords with it, something along those lines. Or just give him a fuzz pedal and a small amp and a slide and tell him to play it just real loud and gnarly. Who knows? Yeah. All right, cool.
Did we ever find out what that single was you were talking about?
No, I can't remember it. How would you implement slide? RC asks into a worship setting. That's a good question. I used to do this a lot when I was playing mega in the church scene. So slide is a really cool way to kind of add a little excitement to some of the melodies. The thing about CCM music, contemporary Christian music, is it's very, very simple, and it's simple by design because you want people. The idea is it's corporate. It's designed to be sung along to. So the melodies are very simple. The chord progressions are very simple, much like pop country in that way. They want it to be memorable and something that someone can quickly sing with. So the guitar lines, the melodies that you would be playing are very, very simple. More than likely, you're going to be playing in standard, unless you want to commit to going into an open tuning for your whole set, your 3 or 4 song set at your church, which might not be a bad idea. You probably get away with open E or open D like this if you learn your triads up and down the neck, which I highly recommend, because it opens you up to a lot of these kind of voicings, which are pretty worship sounding. You know, these super open voicings, and if you're playing diatonically in the key of D in this case, you can get away with all these open strings.
Sort of a tangent, but I saw a question earlier. How do you play a minor chord in a tuning like that?
So in a tuning like this, so that's B minor, the 6th chord of D major. So essentially what I'm doing is, if you imagine there's a B major, right? Because we're tuned to a major triad. So anytime I bar across all 6 strings, I'm going to be playing a major chord. So what I need to do to make that a minor triad is drop the 3rd down a half step. So where's the 3rd here? So this needs to go here. Now again, because I'm in an open D tuning and we're playing diatonically, we're playing the 6th chord, I can use these open strings to my advantage. So really, I'm playing like a, you could call it like a 10th voicing, right? Where it's the minor 3rd, but an octave up. So instead of the 10th being there, which again, that major 3rd in B is not diatonic to the key of D, so we're hearing this rub there. But if I play it a half step down, like this, there's a minor chord. So same thing can happen on my 4 chord, on my G. Right, there's G major. There's my minor chord, my 4 minor, sorry. So one thing you can do to practice that is play your harmonized major scale up the neck. So 1, 2, 3, so both 2 and 3 are minor. So 1 major, 2 minor, 3 minor, 4 major, 5 major, 6 minor, and then you can play the 7 half diminished, just like a minor voicing like this. Kind of works. And back to 1. And then you can add the 2nd string in there as well. So I think it's here. No, I was wrong. So yeah, that's how to play chords.
Hey, there's only 1 coupon left for 50% off.
Uh-oh, who's gonna get it?
50% off Fretboard Fundamentals.
Okay, so back to the church scene. I don't play church stuff anymore, thankfully. But what I would do is use some effects to your advantage to add some length and add some weight to your single note lines. So let's say, see, I don't remember any Christian music. I think I like blocked it all out of my memory. But let's say it's like let's just say that's the line, right? You're going 4, 3, 2, 3, 2, 1. So if you're playing that, you could fret it like that. But to take advantage of the slide, I would really utilize the slides between the notes. So, and against that reverb, it creates a nice sort of dissonance as the note bends up against that reverb. Let me turn the delay off. And I'm going to bring the reverb like way up so you can kind of hear what I'm talking about. So you get this sort of thing. That's an extreme example. And if you're going to do something like this, I would dial in quite a bit of pre-delay in your reverb so that the initial attack of the note can come through before the reverb starts to fill in. Hear that? The note picks and then the reverb comes behind it. There we go. Yeah, there we go. What kind of slide should you use as a beginner? Brass, glass, etc. That's a really good point that we will we'll wrap up here on. What kind of slide to get as a beginner? It doesn't matter. Different slides have different feels. They'd have different sounds. They have different tones. Traditionally, a brass slide like this. This is actually a prototype for my signature slide, which I believe we have linked in the description box down below. This is the glass version of my signature slide from the rock slide. So traditionally glass is a little bit more smoother sounding than brass. Turn off all that reverb. Turn on a little. But it's pretty subtle, and from a listener's perspective, I don't know that it makes a whole lot of difference. I would go based off of what fits your hand. Pick a finger where your slide's going to live, whether it's the third finger, the fourth finger, or like Jason Isbell plays slide on his second finger, and he sounds amazing. He's one of the best slide players around. Pick a finger and stick with it while you're learning. Don't move your slide around. Stick with your finger, your slide on whichever finger you start with to get used to it, and get a slide that fits. It may take you buying several different slides of different styles. The other thing you want to be conscious of is wall thickness. So let me see if I can get this on camera here. See if that'll focus. Come on, focus. Yeah, help me out, Chris. Put that on manual focus. Coming in. There we go. All right. So you see how thick the glass wall is on that slide versus the wall thickness of this brass slide here. Now, that's not going to have a huge effect on the tone of the slide, but what it is going to do is change how the slide feels and how your hand feels while you're playing it. With this glass slide here, what it's doing is essentially raising your finger away from the string more because that wall thickness is more pronounced. Let me show you from this side. The cool thing about these slides is they taper. The insides actually taper a little bit. So when you put it on your finger, well, this is like my third finger, it sort of helps grip and it doesn't move. And then they have these nice cutouts. You can find these at therockslide.com. So they have these nice beveled edges. Same thing with the brass slides. And that allows you to bend your finger a little easier. But again, the thicker wall thickness essentially raises your finger off of the fretboard a little bit more, and it changes how the slide feels in your hand. I can't really describe it for you. You kind of have to feel it yourself. The other main thing is the weight of the slide. Really lightweight slides I tend to like, especially if you're going to try and get into that more like Derek Trucks, AJ Gent kind of sound where it's the very vocal runs kind of thing. You're going to be moving quickly up and down the neck. Get a really lightweight slide. That is one downside with brass slides is they're pretty heavy and it makes it more difficult to play quickly up and down the neck, at least for me. And it makes it more difficult to play quickly accurately. So if you want to do that kind of thing, the Dwayne thing, the Derek Trucks thing, the AJ Gent thing, get a glass slide.
But kind of like what you were saying earlier, you know, Jack White used a Coke bottle.
Yeah.
Tons of old
Well,
slide.
he used a Coke bottle as a bridge on that guitar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's tons of footage of old slide players from the 50s and 60s using spoons.
Yeah.
You know? Or
Or you could do what your dad rock band does on the weekend and pick up a beer bottle in the middle of the set and wow all the people at the bar playing slide with your beer bottle.
anything that makes a sound.
Yeah. You play with a lighter. Seen people play with lighters before. You know, don't let the slide be your excuse. All right, cool. Well, I think that's it, everyone. I think we have one more coupon left for 50% off, so grab that while you still can. For the rest of you, 30% off if you're interested. Fretboard Fundamentals through the rest of the week. Really appreciate everyone hanging out. And yeah, we will see you guys next week on the next Tuesday Live.